Hi, my name is Jason Hahn, and I teach at Abington Senior High School in Abington, Pennsylvania. And this is topic 5.3, computing bias. And today in this video, we will learn about bias in computing. So here's what we're going to learn. We're going to explain how bias exists in computing innovations. And these are the essential knowledge topics that we'll cover today. So let's look at an example. Our first example here is Netflix. Netflix acquires a lot of, it acquires a lot of data from you. One of which is explicit data, which are the data that you give to it. Like you volunteer the information to them. So when you pause a video, there's going to be a little thumbs up and thumbs down that says, "Are you enjoying this?" And you give them your name, your address, and then usually in the beginning, you give them what movies you like and what shows you like in the past. And then they also collect implicit data, which is the fun stuff like when did you watch? How many shows did you binge? What style of show was frequently selected? And they have very detailed, I guess, descriptions for their shows that they have. So it might be like, gritty, I guess, nighttime sort of like thriller, et cetera, et cetera. So the bias here is that Netflix exclusives are featured ahead of most. So when you go to comedies, you're not just going to get, a wide variety of comedies. You're going to get Netflix exclusives first. And they intentionally do this because, well, they want your subscriptions. If you can stick with Netflix and continually pay with them, like if you find a show that you really like and there's like 5 seasons and it's awesome, then that's exactly what Netflix wants. Because if it's produced by them, you can only find it there, and so you're going to stick with them for months and months. So the point is, computing innovations can reflect existing human biases because of biases written to the algorithms or biases in the data used by the innovation. In this case here, the people at Netflix know that they're doing this and they're being very intentional about it. And is it necessarily a bad thing? I wouldn't say so. I think it's, in this case, good business. So next, let's talk about a hypothetical loan company. Let's say they're creating software to assist loan officers as to who they should give their money to. And maybe the software finds trends in successful loans. And it might be a little bit silly, but like, what if the computer finds that people named John, over the age of 40, tend to do well with the money and reciprocate back? Now, that'd be a little bit silly, right? And maybe they reject those who don't fit their trends. So, based on age, gender, or race or ethnicity. And again, this is just the computer going at it. So if you are a software engineer, you should really take action to reduce the bias in the algorithms used for these innovations as a way of combating existing human biases. So if somebody comes into the office and they have, really ratty shoes and, they're not dressed all that well, you might say, well, I don't know if I should lend money to this person. But the software should be able to step in and say, hey, this is a good candidate because of X, Y, and Z. And it shouldn't reject anybody based on anything other than, I guess, their financial potential. So, lastly, here, biases can be embedded at all levels of software development. And all software can be biased, whether unintentionally or intentionally. So, the first example here would be like casual games versus sweaty games. And what I mean by that is casual games like Candy Crush and a sweaty game might be like Call of Duty. Now, Call of Duty isn't trying to block anybody from playing their game. In fact, they want more people to play, but they're gearing it towards the sort of teenage boy demographic, right? 18 to 24ish or so. And there's like a lot of loud sound effects, and the music's a little bit more like, I guess, grungy and hardcore, versus the casual market. You might think of like lots of little bloops and shimmery things. And they're both not trying to say you can't play my game, but they're gearing themselves to a particular audience. YouTube Kids is another great example of that. And then we have Facebook versus Instagram versus like Snapchat and TikTok. Now, I don't think they're trying to bias the market in any sort of way, but they definitely cater to certain markets. So for TikTok, for example, there's a lot of, fast video and things that older people might not understand because it's a little bit overwhelming to them. And Facebook is, I guess unintentionally so geared towards the older community because kids don't tend to go there. And then we have WeChat and Kakao Talk. Now, WeChat is a Chinese-based application, and almost everybody there has WeChat on their phones, and they use it to talk to one another, to chat, to video message one another. But they also use it to pay for like the subway or for meals. I mean, it's ubiquitous. And Kakao Talk is the Korean version of that, but that's just more for communicating with one another. If you know anybody who's older that's Korean, that they communicate with people in Korea with Kakao Talk. Now, the why I bring that up is because those applications are more biased for those markets, and a lot of the times they're written in those markets, and they're not trying to exclude anybody, but again, they're trying to make sure that the people of the respective countries or demographic can use it, and it's easy for them to use it. So, questions to ask about bias: is it enhancing or is it intentionally excluding? I think that's number one, something that you have to keep in mind as you're developing programs. So, in terms of Call of Duty, that's enhancing the user's experience, their core demographic, versus trying to shut anybody out. Is it intentionally hateful or harmful? That's something that we want to avoid as well. Definitely don't want to, exclude people just based on things that they can't control. And then, are you receiving feedback from a wide variety of people? I think this is a really good way of counteracting any sort of bias that you see or feel. Now, last point here: Google Home and Amazon Echo. Google Home is the little voice assistant speaker that you might have in your kitchen. Same with the Echo. And these were criticized initially because they couldn't understand um, people with accents. Because with a heavy English, or I'm sorry, with a heavy, I guess, foreign accent, it wasn't programmed for that. It was modeled and designed by using just like American English speakers. But they have been getting better at it. But even better than that is they support many more languages now, so you can speak in your native tongue. And I think that's a really great way of addressing the problem that's there. So, what should we take away? Um, the learning objective today was explain how bias exists in computing innovations, and these were the essential knowledge topics for today. Now, I just want to reinforce that you have to be careful of stereotypes and bias in your programs, and whether it's intentional or unintentional, you have to make sure that you avoid it at all costs, because we're trying to promote, I guess, growth and development for you and the whole, I guess, ecosystem that uses your program in the future. So, anyway, thank you so much, and I'll talk to you in the next one.